الكتاب اللي عمالنا بنسويه ان شاء الله السنه الجايه يطلع بنهايه 23 هيك الجدول، وفيه مقالات مختلفه منها مقاله الزميله لانا جودي، المقالات سليم عن الغريب يافا، وعن الحداثة تعصف المتوسط بكتابه الجبل ضد البحر موجودة برضو بالكتاب. في مقالات عن السياحة، في مقالات عن تخطيط يافا بسنة 1944، في عن الرواد، المهندسين الرواد، رزق خوري، سيد كريم وانترفنشنز تبعه فلسطين، هاني عرفات، جورج صايغ فؤاد، وهلم جرى. في كتير اشياء رح تكون في الكتاب. فانا على علاقه بهذا بفلسطين الحداثيه من مده، وهي مؤرقتني. اشتغلت كتير على رام الله الحداثي. وهي رام الله للاسف يعني كنت بستنى انه الشمس تغيب او يصير كسوف، بس ما زبط. يعني بدكم تتخيلوا انه الصور كتير حلوين. فهذه رام الله قبل الزلزال 1927، فيها كل العناصر لمدينة أو بلدة متوسطة الحجم، الكلاستر تبعها، التكتيلات. why I'm talking in Arabic or English? I'm sorry. Okay, so you can notice the clustering of the traditional Palestinian town, small courtyards, neighborhoods, and so on. Okay. And then I am concerned with this moment that Lana Judy showed. This is the municipality by Rizq Khouri, and I am more interested with this house on the left. You see this one? This is the Rabah family house that I upgraded with Khalil Rabah, the artist. We added 2 floors to it. And Khalil, remembering working on the design for 2 continuous years. Can you imagine to add 2 floors? We worked 2 years with an artist who's crazy. So he told me one thing that kept coming to my mind. He said, Khaldun, things were happening and going to some direction, and suddenly everything collapsed. So talking about his house, he was fascinated with the design that Rizq Khouri did for him and for his father and his uncle and all Rabah family around him. So there was something happening, and we arrived to this. This is Ramallah today. So this is why we think that there was something happening, talking about the relation between Assam Badr and the artist in Iraq, and that Maidan al-Tahrir in Iraq, and copying relations, I don't know, interacting with the Arab world, and suddenly we have something that we don't have really a good relation with. This is Ramallah. So to have a good story about it is just we have to go back. So Salim already gave us the Ottoman origin of modernity in the Arab world or in the world, to be European in a way. And they did some kind of designs that they are a new classic. We cannot call them modern, but they are not traditional in their context, not like Ramallah, the one we saw. And even the Ottomans tried to build new cities, not only to have modernized the already existing, like this is Bir Saba, modern periphery, I call it, because really they managed to build a city on a grid system with facilities, with a train station, with mosque, with governor house, Saraya, and so on, in the desert. It's just to combat the Bedouins, but also to have a stronghold against the British who are advancing from Egypt. Not only Bir Saba, but also they designed Auj al-Hafir. Auj al-Hafir is as the edge between the desert and Egypt. It's a complete city with stores, houses, station, train station, barracks, public space, and so on. They did it, but the project stopped by 1915 with the war and the invasion of the Allies. So there is another story. This is the Ottoman story. Now we have the British colonization story. There is a new term which has been circulating for the last year, demodernization. noting that modernization is a colonial project. This was done by DAR, Decolonizing Architecture and Art Residency, Alessandro Betti and Sandy Hilal. They are trying to put this new term into practice, demodernization, calling to critically think about the era of modernism. Because what we see in terms of architecture, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of whatever it was, exploitation by a colonial power. This is what they say. I think that demodernization is a big name, like decolonization, deconstruction, but I don't know where we are going with this term. We'll see. But so the British came and they started their, what I call it, state ideology apparatus, following Althusser or Foucault, whatever you call it. They tried to control the state. They control the territory, economy, culture, politics, public space. So they start building the banks, of course. This is Barclays Bank. And they also put boots in the ground in the same time. Telecommunication and media, they controlled it. This is the BBC, Ramallah aerials. You can call it PBC or BBC. During the construction, 1930s. They also put school for police to police the people. So these are all the essence of modern state. Policing, communication, media, even visuals, banks, most important. Yeah, the post office by Austin Harris, the hydraulic plant, industrialization. This is the Shaman factory in Haifa, and the museum also. Even controlling the narrative was part of the modern state. You can see that the museum, the Rockefeller Museum in Jerusalem, has some postmodern elements still. I don't know if you call it postmodern, but it was not yet happening in 1930s. But it has all the elements from Palestinian architecture modernized, I would say. And then we have the airports. This is the transportation hubs. The harbor in Haifa was developed. The airport in Lod was developed. The airport in Kalandia, 1920s, was developed. And you can see what kind of architecture that we have. Of course, the images from 1950s. And during the mandate, we see also another thing happening on the public sphere, on the people themselves, what they are doing, development, modernization, and so on. So this is the Al-Hamra cinema in Jaffa, done by Ilyas El-Mor, 1937. Ilyas El-Mor from Lebanon. So we can see that the architecture is not only done by Palestinians, but also they were inviting architects from the Arab world and from elsewhere, as I will show. King Faisal Street in Haifa, urban life, new images, new forms of architecture, vertical, horizontal elements, public space, roundabouts, and so on. And this is today King Faisal. You see the buildings, the horizontal or international style kind of architecture. And Palestinian also residences were emerging. This is Abu Lujbin in Beit Dajan near Ramle, near Jaffa Ramle, of course. And if you see it from an architecture book, you will imagine that Le Corbusier designed it immediately. Like, what is this, Villa Savoy or something? But it was a Palestinian residence for Abu Lujbin family who owned a lot of orange orchard. And they are talking about it in this postcard and about the house from inside and so on. It was exhibited in the Palestinian Museum. And then we have, this has a relation to Jad Thabit, I think. This is Villa Constantin Salami from 1930s, was designed by Lucien Cavroux, and I think he was in relation with Anton Thabit, yes, in 1930s. Yeah, you can tell me more, but you can see this modern architecture. It is symmetrical, but the columns lost their capitals, their bases, the sharp edges and so on. Elevator inside, marble, granite, mosaic, one piece and very beautiful. All this roundabout is called Salami in Talbiya in West Jerusalem. They did a lot of villas using Lucian, but also using Sultan Hermit. Also, he's a Jewish immigrated architect. And yeah, they did a lot of villas. They were doing architecture and selling it sometimes. And then I'm sorry to show this in this kind of lighting. This is the Ali al-Miliji Masoud plan 1944 for Jaffa. And this is an artwork by D. Masrouji, etched on black wood, blackened and then etched, just to show where we are drawn into blankness or the emptiness. But Ali al-Miliji Masoud has all the aspiration of modern city. Boulevard, schools, casinos, cafes, sport city, and so on, all in the component of his plan 1944. And he is talking about it in the statement actually. إني آمل أن يكون هذا المشروع دستورا للمدينة نحرص على تنفيذه في مراحله المختلفة وأن تتعاون هيئة البلدية الحالية والهيئات التي تليها بدافع من أنفسهم ومن أهالي يافا جميعا على المضي في هذا التنفيذ. ولا أشك أن الدراسات التفصيلية لهذه المقترحات قد تستدعي إجراء بعض التعديلات الطفيفة بها، ولن يكون الوصول إلى الكمال بشأنها عزيزا على الهيئة الفنية ببلدية يافا ما دام أن الإخلاص سيكون رائدها في كل ما تخطوه من خطوات وما تقدم به من دراسات، فعلى بركة الله والله الموفق وهو الموفق. بمعنى أنه there is a manifesto here. It's not only a plan with the schools and boulevard and of course there is, if you read the plan, you will see the old part and the new part on top of it. Lots of destruction happening, but this is modernization for Ali al-Miliji Masoud, who was brought from Cairo to do the project in Jaffa. But then يا فرحة ما تمت. يا فرحة ما تمت, we have the Nakba. But Nakba yielded two things. We think that only Palestinians become refugees and victims and so on. And we have two things. One outcome is the refugee camps, which were par excellence a modern design. They were grid, they were rationalized, they were the maximum use of land, the minimum use of power, the minimum use of schooling, food, and so on. It's like designing how the human should behave even. In this, you see the structure starting with tents, leading to the concrete shelters, and arriving to this. This is the same camp, Jalazon refugee camp. You see the tents, the shelters, and then the city or the Jalazon camp now of 15,000. If we consider modernity is about individualism and rationalism, look at the architecture in the refugee camp. The personalized, the functional. You can see this, but this is kind of architecture. Does it make sense also? It makes sense for the individual there. He is gaining half meter from the sky. He is recycling a handrail. He is recycling a window. He's cutting the concrete to suit a window that he bought from the second-hand rubbish in Israel. So he cut the concrete and put the window because it's cheaper for him and so on. And they do coloring, they do marble, they do granite also to show their status and their relation to the neighbors, who made it, who didn't made it, and so on. And of course, this is a Palestinian habit. When you build a floor, you put columns anticipating a new floor to come. Happening in Jordan also, I think. So this is the camps part, and then we have architecture emerging from between the two catastrophes, or the two Nakbas, 1948, 1967. So in this time, we see that Palestine is re-emerging again and making architecture that we are not used to. For instance, this is Ramallah. This is the Manara that Lana talked about. The Lion Square, which used to be the electrical pool square. The Arab Bank, we have all the designs for the Arab Bank, which is on the other side of this. So it was designed in 1950, 1952, and the image of the Arab Bank and the Manara is still occupying us. We want always to imitate and to bring Ramallah to that image of 1952, the prosperous, the beautiful, and so on, the golden age of Palestine or Ramallah. During that moment, we have the Grand Hotel by Fouad al-Sayegh, And it's not only from outside that's beautiful and very complicated, cantilevers, different use of stone, different use of hollow blocks, the traceries, but inside. And you see, even they brought Egyptians to serve. They know how to deliver the service for the dining room. And it was a big industry. And for Adesai, of course, because we mentioned it, I'm bringing the post office in East Jerusalem, Salah ad-Din branch. This is his design. And the beauty of Fuad Saigh, you don't see only the front facade. You go to the back facade and see it. So as if it's all front facades for him, with the sun breakers or the horizontal elements, vertical elements, very transitional movement from corbels to column and so on. So he did really invested in architecture. So mentioning post office, this is the Nablus post office. You see also the tracery or the mashrabiyya, and then vertical elements, horizontal elements. This probably designed by Hain Arafat, but the signature on the drawings are by Wazarat al-Ashghal al-Urduniyya, which is normal, I think. So in that moment also, the Hashemite movement in Palestine, we have lots of hotels emerging, and one of the chapters will be about the national hotel Fondak al-Watani in Jerusalem, as a story of leisure, modernity, and so on. So this is the Ritz Hotel. And this is SABE building, which used to be a mall on the ground floor and a hotel supposedly on the upper floors, stopped by 1967, never fulfilled the dream, الفرحة اللي ما تمت, but they continued it recently. 2-3 years ago, they renovated it. It's in a terrible way, actually. Yeah, you see, it's not showing the design, it's not the quality, and so on. But this is something else. This is Gaza. The destroyed every 2 years Gaza. We cannot imagine that in Gaza there is modernity, but there was modernity. There were more than 13, at least 13 cinemas in Gaza between 1913 and 1967. They were functioning, and they were in competition, and they were family-based. They were private sector development theaters. Now there is a Shawa theater. So this is a Samer cinema. But if you see it, wow, this is a good design. No, it was not designed like this. It was not designed in one piece. You go there, and you see all the images. It started with this on the left, and then added something on top, and then said, okay, we need to compete. Let's put some tower, a candle tower it's called. And they did it. And here's the drawing. It's adding, it's a revision drawing sent to the municipality. And by accident, we found these 3 cinemas in the municipality archive, Samer, Nasser, and Al Jala. So this is an addition to the already existing cinema. Look at this. This is Al Jala, yeah, and see, they have the icon, the Egyptian icon on top of it also. It was never implemented like this, but anyway, this kind of design existed. And then Al-Nasser cinema has the signature of Saad Zaghloul Ibrahim. So we know now that the architects came from Egypt and designed it, and we know the relation between Gaza and Egypt during the 1948-1967. So we have a very beautiful design, very complicated, and the first, you know, as an architect, the first time I get to know the word sikorit, you know this? Sikorit, you don't know? The glass, the stained glass. Sikorit. I come to know it in 2000, 1999. And I saw it is written here. It is written here in 1960s, sikorit. When Lana was talking about the thickness of the bars, here they are putting, and there is a lot of mechanical and electrical drawings, by the way. We have it all from the municipality. Look at this elaborate entrance for Al-Nasser. It's the same cinema, which was never implemented like this because it became like this. Yeah, and now it is deserted without the glass. Now everything is stopped by 1987 this time. So we have all the time, we have a farha that did not came to be fulfilled. This is cinema Beit Lahem. There are 2 cinemas close to each other in Beit Lahem, 1 and 2. We don't know who the designer. They say it Karim designed 1, but we don't know really from typology. No, it's not his work. Probably some copying from somebody else. But look at the Hubb Ahla min al-Hubb. What does it mean? This is the film which was proposed there. And industry and industrialization is connected to modernity. And here is the factory of الزيوت النباتية, شركة الزيوت النباتية الأردنية in Nablus, which is owned, I think, 49% by the government of Jordan and King Hussein putting money in it. So they invited Rose Downs and Thompson from Britain to design it because they couldn't design the thing. And they have a local architect who was following the project, redesigning it and putting the material into work. And he's called Nasri Mukhar. Possibly he is the one who designed Cinema Al-Asi, which was destroyed 3-4 years ago. Now to Sayyid Karim. Sayyid Karim, I will mention only this house. This is Qutb family house in Beit Hanina. And I think Sayyid Karim signed his name on the facade. On the left. I think. This is from my imagination. But why is it S? Why it should be S? It can end anywhere. Anyway, but this is the kind of elements we saw in Cinema Al-Khayyam or Cinema Al-Hussein. There are some similarities, but lots of material used. Stone, concrete, cantilevers, flying cantilevers. I don't know, lots of things. And now it is hidden by the greenery, but it still is there. So why we call it the King Hussein residence? Because King Hussein used to go to Ramallah, and when he saw the building, he said, who's the architect? First of all, he rented it from Qutb family, offered the building immediately to King Hussein, and used it as a residence for King Hussein until Sayyid Karim was ordered to build King Hussein Palace in Beit Hanina, which is still there, unfinished business, unfulfilled promise. Unfortunately, the western facade has a 7-meter-long corrugated concrete cantilever. It's beautiful and fall 10 years ago on its place. So I was walking on it and I didn't realize until I saw a photo about it. Anyway, but Palestinians were not disconnected. Modernity was part of a process happening in the Middle East and beyond. And the example that Atallah building that Lana showed, that we have relations with architects from Italy, from beyond Palestine to come and do architecture. This is Hani Arafat. Hani Arafat in particular, who was educated in Egypt, he has Hassan Fathi on his jury sometime, and he has been in contact with Sayyid Karim, and therefore Sayyid Karim came to Nablus, and it's most likely he designed the roundabout where you see all the demonstration nowadays, before he came to Jordan 1967. And now to Hani Arafat again with the drawings, guys. We found this in his archive. This is Kamal, Jawad Kamal family house. Of course, when he designed, it changes in the reality, but the reality is not very far. Not far, the cantilevers, the entrance, the concrete pergolas, maybe it's not finished, the staircase and so on. The landscape was part. The fireplace was a big fight between Hani Arafat and the people. We don't want a fireplace, he wants a fireplace. For him, a fireplace is a place where people meet and talk. So it's a social space. Even in Nablus, it does not get very cold, but he loves to have even two fireplaces. And he designed Nablus municipality, never implemented in this way, but it has some similarities. These are his sketches, which is very beautiful. And this is Muhammad Quran Villa in Amman, but was never implemented, I think. So you can imagine the work of Karim, the work of Hani Arafat, it echoes each other. And then this was designed and implemented exactly the same, but not S. Of course, this is Hani. So it cannot have the S. So different materials. This is Dar al-Alul. We have images, but I don't show it. And this was his intention to build his villa. This is Hani Arafat villa, which was never implemented. So you can imagine Frank Lloyd Wright immediately, and he was planning something like this. So we ended up with this. Yeah, and instead of having Frank Lloyd Wright or Hani Arafat infused by Frank Lloyd Wright, well, I don't know who is copying who, but infused by Frank Lloyd Wright in Nablus, we ended up with Kufr Aqab, informal city like this. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Questions, please. I have a lot of comments, but start with the public. Yes.
Mahmoud Mileji, Masoud, he's Egyptian. Ali Mileji Masoud, صح. But I don't know. But he's not Palestinian because was invited to Jaffa. We don't have the, who's the mayor, Haika, Hassan Haika, مش Haika. His name fled my the mayor in Jaffa ordered him. There's a cooperation between, yeah, you know, but I don't know. He's not from Palestine. Okay, so this complicates the issue. So the openness or who is he is a good question then. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention Villa Qutb in particular that you showed. If we compare it to Wazart al-Zira'a here, between the second and the first circle, thinking also that Wazart al-Zira'a, the Ministry of Agriculture, was actually built as a housing project, and then later on used as a Wazart al-Zira'a. There are a lot of similarities. I mean, they're both Sayyid Kriya, but also they have a lot of similarities, not only in the form, but also in the elements that were used. So this could be a very good parallel, basically.
Shukran Khaldun. It's a great presentation. I've been seeing parts of this in your previous, but now the picture is becoming clearer, and definitely publication should be on the way. And if the Arab Center for Architecture can do anything to help, support, we could write a grant together, whatever you want. I think it's a great thing. And I'm very happy you're finding these archives in unsuspected places sometimes and so on. And this is very timely because we are rediscovering the importance of archives and what one can do with those. And we haven't been gathering enough, and a lot was lost with our nakbas of different types in each Arab country. And hopefully this will be a great publication. Congratulations.
Well,
سامعني؟ يعطيك العافية. شكرا كثير لك على presentation. I would like to ask about the word farha. You describe the whole process as something positive. I understand the beginning and the ending. The last slide you showed us, I understand why do you call it matamit, but I don't understand why you described it as a farha. I understand that modernity somehow affected the evolution of our own architecture. So was this another side? Maybe okay, we should celebrate, and I think architectural style that has dominated the entire world. Okay, but did that happen at the expense of the evolution of our own architecture or not? Thank you.
I am aware. This is why I also started with the term demodernization and noting the complexity and dialectical relation with modernity, especially with the Arab world and the Europeans, because modern is intrinsically is European project, say, believe it or not. But if we just expand the notion of modernity, like Salim Tamari starting with the Ottoman era, or even go to the Gothic period, and every period was a modern in its term. But modernity, as we know, it is related to industrialization, related to the individual, rationalization, and so on. And Palestinians were emerging into this social new existence. The individual is important, as Salim showed us in the images. It's not the family, the kinship. There is some rational, I don't know, it's not a farha for me. It's like the farha that the architects tried to do did not happen. It's not like I am in favor of modern architecture, because I think I've been doing restoration for 26 years. So I know what we lost, but what we gain, and so on. And if we just expand the notion of modernity to encompass something else, then we will own the project again, as maybe yesterday Rami said and Tabet said, Jed. And yeah, I think it's a problematic, the farha ma tammet, but it's a Palestinian say, when you have all the introductions leading to a different conclusion. So, and for the archives, yes, I think what George has been doing also, archiving is an important thing. Rewalk is all about archive. We've been archiving all the historic buildings, but really we have to write a project about archiving the modern architecture. Now we have to start, even if we do pilots, is I have in mind the most 100 important or exemplary modern architecture in Palestine. We have to do something like that, even if we miss. But we have to start, because they are not protected. And these are the first architecture to be destroyed and build high-rise in Palestine. Yeah.
Shukran, Dr. Khaldun. It was so inspired me and touched my base. I know the overlayers is a part of the storytelling of the building or the site, and a significant part of its history. Maybe these interventions, as we mentioned yesterday, it's a good way instead of demolition. But how far does the authenticity and integrity of the building affected by these added layers?
Yeah, I get this question even when we talk about restoration. And I always answer that our heritage is not a museum and never built as a one entity. It was built rooms added on top of each other. Yeah, even the most beautiful palace was altered. So I think we should not, the authenticity is over exaggerated, I think, especially with the World Heritage List and so on. Maybe with the World Heritage Universal Value things, yes, maybe it's fine, let's talk about authenticity. But when we talk about modern architecture, historic architecture, not archaeology and so on, so what is authentic? Because even this, yesterday, Lana talked about the Atallah building as a capsule. They did not change a lot. And I know Hanan Ashrawi from Razik Khouri, architect, who built Mikhail Ashrawi house, villa. And they did not change anything inside. Even they are not daring to change the color. But we know that lots of houses have been changed dramatically. People want to live. Life goes on. And I think we should think about social change as authentic in itself. It's like, yeah. Yeah.
The term used today at the ICRAM or at the Getty institution is evolving authenticity. So it's not static anymore, definitely. Yeah.
Yes, George.
I would like to comment just on what you said. I think it would be a mistake to constantly put in opposition modernism, modernity, progress, progressive ideas, and ourselves. I think it's politically wrong because, I mean, Jad mentioned it, Khaldun as well. It is a political project. Modernity is not a stylistic thing. It's about freedom. It's about democracy. It's about freedom of expression, artistic expression. And there is room for that, even when we are aware of what is special in our cultures. There were moments where we missed opportunities. And Palestine is probably the best example, one deception after the other. But what drives change is precisely this idea that you have the right to be modern. And we've heard a lot of usuliyة, I would say, I don't know the word in English. أصولية معمارية، أصولية stylistic. إنه هيدا مش نحن، الحداثة مش نحن، الحداثة هي الآخر. You know, modernism is the other. We are tradition. And I always use this idea that what we call traditions is modernisms compiled across time. What arrived to us is a succession of modern moments. We don't call them modern because the word was coined lately. But every time things made sense for people with their techniques, their economy, their wishes, and so on, they produced an architecture and cities and built environments. And today we look at it and we say, this is tradition. It's actually modernisms.
Yes.
I'm an architect from Gaza, and I'm really happy with attending this event. I consider myself so lucky to be able to attend this. I want to mention something about the residential building in Gaza, the modern one, because I am interested in tracking the buildings that are different from the ones we are used to. Gaza have lots of gray buildings, and this is what we all see around us every day. Even when you Google Gaza, the first thing you see is the gray buildings and nothing about Gaza, about the everyday bombing and this. So I was tracking these buildings and I found some. Most of them had in late 30s and in the Egyptian period. And I was tracking the stories of these buildings. And I got to know something funny. There were no architects or engineers in Gaza in that period. There were two engineers, but no one was caring to asking their opinions or have their design. So I asked the people who lives in these houses who built this building. So they were saying that most of the traders who were traveling to Jaffa or Alexandria in Egypt were seeing some designs similar to the Bauhaus buildings and building them in Gaza. They were seeing the design and telling the contractor the same design. So they were saying, I was searching for the maps of these houses. So I didn't find any map. Little buildings were having some maps, but most of them, they were saying that the contractor was drawing the map on the ground, and this contractor was building all the street. So you can see all the buildings in the same street have similar look, just a different look, just a different in the interiors, depend on the family's number and stuff like this. Another thing that I found some buildings from late 60s, people became more aware of taking the opinion of an architect, but most of these architects were Egyptians. And these building designs were so spectacular, and I have some photos. I can send them to you later. This is what I wanted to mention, and thank you for this incredible.
Okay.
remind me with Hani Arafat, driving with his daughter, Reem, and Reem telling him, you designed this house. He says, no, I didn't design it. No, you designed it. He said, I did not supervise it. So he designed it, but not. The people changed a lot. So he will not put his name on the building as if it's not his. Even they were very good in implementing, but there are little differences that make him up. So this, I agree, people change. And this is the beauty of architecture. That there is the power is not only at our side, the democracy. There is a client and he wants something, which is good actually, not to be a god and putting things onto the ground.
One last question. Last one.
It's not a question as much as I want to emphasize on the point that George has made, basically, which is, I think, is very important. When we think that, you know, this modern is alien to us, which is, I agree with George, I disagree completely that it's alien to us. And also reconnecting this with the idea of this notion of overthinking about authenticity and change and transformation. And I just want to give two very quick examples. One is Ruskin himself, who's from the heart of conservation and from the heart of tradition, when he says that it's impossible to recreate the past. On the contrary, he thinks that contemporary creation has to be very contemporary. And the other is from a dish we're going to eat today at lunch, which is mensaf. I always give this example to my students. You know, it's like if you ever imagined that mensaf had not evolved, because, you know, we always think of tradition as being something static, something sacred that had not evolved or changed over time. Mensaf, for everybody's information, was never eaten with rice. It was eaten with burghul and sometimes with bread. And rice is a new introduction. So even our symbolic dish has evolved and changed over time.
Okay, thank you. I have to.
George made a good point, and Rami, I wrote an article about falafelization, which is the appropriation of Palestinian tradition into the Israeli thing. And in that one, I wrote a specific sentence. The colonial wants the post-colonial to be pre-colonial.
Exactly.
المستعمرين بدهم إياه نرجع لورا. هذا فنون حكاها. Fanon told us that the colonial would leave us into our primitiveness. There is no modern project for us. And therefore, Fanon asks us to go beyond. It's not to have your project and even to delve into modernity or whatever on your own term. Not to be part of production of knowledge, not to consume the knowledge. This is just to end on
okay.
this note.
Two comments. The first is related to this. In 1935, the pipeline from Kirkuk reached the port of Haifa. And at that time, there was a Lebanese landlord, Raja Baik Rayis, who bought land in the German colony in Haifa. And Raja Baik Rayis came to my father. My father had graduated from Paris. He was known as a modern architect, etc. He came to my father. He told him, the Jews want to say they are modern architecture. They are doing I don't know what in Tel Aviv. And they want us to go back to the Ottoman. And I want to build something that shows that we Arab are modern. So he gave him a commission to build a sort of small garden city, a block in the German colony that was built from 1936 till 1942, which is still now existing. There is a Palestinian architect from Haifa who did last year his master degree on this thing. I have all the plans signed from the municipality, Antoine Tabet, etc., etc. And I receive pictures. I have a friend of, Palestinian architect who has his office in one of these buildings, and he sends me every time. Okay, now the buildings have been transformed. They added sometimes armid or things of this sort, but it is still there. It is still there.